Hey, it's Matt at RuffHouse Studios, and welcome to Infused Eats. Today, we're making Cannabis Infused Jalapeno Poppers. This episode of Infused Eats is brought to you by Wax Liquidizer. It's the easy way to turn your wax and rosin into e-juice in a matter of minutes. You can save money with the code RuffHouse at waxliquidizer.com. This episode is part of our ongoing series of summer fresh garden recipes. I've got a garden growing, and throughout this summer and into the fall, we're going to be bringing you recipes from the garden, things that we pick fresh from the farm right to the table. Today we're going to be using peppers, and we're also going to be using some chives. But you can see some of the things that we'll be looking forward to. We've got some eggplant grow, and of course we've got tomatoes, we got squash. There are a lot of things coming up, so hope you're looking forward to this for this summer. And this is our first official summertime fresh recipe, so please use fresh ingredients if you can. If you can't grow them yourself, that's okay. You can also get fresh ingredients at your grocery store. So I'm using some of the chives that I've grown, and I've also chopped some of the jalapenos and harvested that. So let's get started with a recipe. Now, here's what you need. You need 3 to 4 grams of cannabis flowers or 6 to 10 grams of rosin chips. I'll talk more about that in a second. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of fresh chives, which is optional, 1 12-ounce package of cream cheese, softened, a half a cup of grated sharp cheddar cheese, 12 fresh jalapenos, and 12 slices of bacon. Now, when it comes to the cannabis, you can see I'm using rosin chips here, which is what's left if you press rosin. It still has some wax left into it. And then you could also use regular cannabis flowers. I'm going to be using a combination. Now, there can be some pitfalls to using rosin chips in a recipe, and that is the case in this one. So make sure you pay attention to the whole recipe to find out more about that. Now, we're going to move on to the first step, which is going to be to decarb and infuse the cannabis. So what we're going to do is to prep our cannabis by taking out any stems, if you have any seeds, if there might be any of those in there. And then we're going to grind it up and put it in a bowl that's oven safe. And then if you're using rosin pucks or rosin chips, you're going to do basically the same thing. Now, I've said in previous videos you don't need to decarb the rosin pucks, but I've learned through some testing that it doesn't really hurt, and so you might as well go ahead and do that and make sure you've got it as activated as possible, activating all the THCA into THC so it's more psychoactive. And we're going to decarb that at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 minutes inside of an oven. And you can put the foil on there if you want to keep down the smell, because it will smell up your house a lot. So we're going to move on now to the next step, which is infusing it. We've got our couple tablespoons of olive oil there. And you could use regular vegetable oil if you want to, or butter if you want to. We're going to go ahead and combine in our oil. I'm using a little funnel there to make it easier, but it got clogged up and wasn't easier anyway. So you might as well just get it in there the best way you can. So we're combining our oil and our rosin chips and our cannabis. I'm going to put the lid back on it again there. Put it back in the oven. It's still at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours to infuse that into the oil. You can see now I've infused the oil. It's much darker. And about halfway through the infusion, you might want to stir that up too, just to help the infusion process go along faster. And if you have some soy lecithin, you might want to add a couple of milliliters of that in there as well if you want an emulsifier. Now we're going to combine our cannabis into our food processor, but here's where you would not want to do this. If you want to strain it out, if you're using rosin pucks, do not put your cannabis into the actual recipe. Go ahead and strain out and use only the oil, because those hard bits of compressed cannabis will not break up like you would want. So I made a mistake in it on this recipe, but if you're using pucks, then go ahead and strain that oil out. If you're only using cannabis flowers, you're good to go with the flowers left in there. And we're going to put our chives, our infused oil, and our cream cheese a little bit at a time into the food processor. I'm putting about a half or about a third at a time into the food processor, the cream cheese, pulsing it up a few times, mixing it up, wiping down the sides, adding in more cream cheese. I'm just going to get everything as chopped as possible and emulsified and blended together as well as possible. This will take a few minutes, so I've compressed the time here in the video. But once you're finished, you're going to see that it's smoothed out really nicely. And you could spice it up differently if you want there. You could put garlic chives or whatever. And when I tasted it is when I realized I had made a mistake by leaving in those rosin pucks. The rosin pucks aren't as strong either. And so, it also, you have to use a lot more. And it just doesn't taste that good with the rosin pucks to leave it in there. But the oil would be fine. And then fold in your cheddar cheese and you're ready to go. Then we're going to put that in the refrigerator, that filling, while we move on and do our jalapenos. We've got a dozen jalapenos here, so it could take a few minutes. So keep that cheese cold and it'll be easier to work with when we move on. When it comes to your jalapenos, you're going to take each one, cut off the stem top, then cut it in half lengthwise. And then we're going to gut out that placenta material and the seeds that are inside. And it's also the hottest part of the pepper, but we're not going for hot here. We need more of an empty shell. So go ahead and cut that stuff out on the inside there. Okay, and then keep your halves together, and it'll make it a lot easier for you when you move on to the next step. So go ahead and go through all your peppers one at a time, making sure that you have prepped out all the guts inside, and then keep them together like that in a bowl so that we can move on to the next step once you have them all prepped. All right, we're getting towards the end of the recipe here. We're going to now assemble the poppers. We're going to need the cheese filling, the poppers, the bacon, and optionally some toothpicks. You might find you need them, but I really didn't need them, but I used them anyway. So here we go with the poppers. You're going to stick them together, fill each popper half, pretty stuffed, and then stick the peppers together. And then you're going to wrap each of the pairs that are stuffed together with a piece of bacon. And if you use the whole piece of bacon like that, you can wrap it where you really don't need the toothpick. But if you feel like you do need the toothpick, you can just find a good spot and then poke it through kind of quick to get through that fresh pepper in there. Then we'll go through and finish up with each pepper, half, and then fill it, wrap it in bacon, and then move on to the next one until you have all dozen of your peppers done. Okay, we're going to put that on a oven dish that has like the grated bottom so that the grease can drop through. Bake it at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. And when you're finished, your popper is going to be oozing cheese that's melted and delicious and crusty like this. You could go a little bit further if you want. I didn't get my bacon quite crispy because I didn't want too much of the cheese to ooze out. But you could go a little crispier on your bacon there if you don't mind losing a little cheese and scraping that up. And you can see these things are really good. They're so moist and delicious, and that fresh pepper on the inside really gives it a nice zing. And oh, they're so delicious. Again, I want to thank the guys at Wax Liquidizer for sponsoring this video. You can save money with the code RuffHouse at waxliquidizer.com. It's an easy way to turn your wax and rosin into e-juice. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe for Cannabis Infused Jalapeno Poppers. If you did, please hit the like button and also subscribe to RuffHouse Studios for more cannabis culture videos and recipes made just for you. This is Matt, your Cannabis Infused host, saying thank you for watching.